County Council will now come to order. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kathy Bevins, and I'm the chair of the County Council and also represent the 6th District. I welcome you to this public hearing on the proposed 4th District zoning map. As with our legislative sessions, work sessions, and public hearings since the COVID-19 pandemic began, we are convening this public hearing virtually via WebEx video teleconference. I would like to introduce my colleagues. Councilman Tom Pork represents the 1st District.
Good evening.
Councilman Izzy Patoka represents the 2nd District.
Hello, everybody.
Councilman Wade Katz represents the 3rd District.
Hello.
And Councilman Julian Jones represents the 4th District.
Good afternoon.
Councilman David Marks represents the 5th District.
Good afternoon.
And Councilman Todd Crandall represents the 7th District.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you.
Copy of the recommended map and log of issues with the planning board recommendations is posted on the county website at www.baltimorecountymd.gov/agencies/planning/CZMP. This hearing is one of 7 scheduled public hearings during the month of June concerning the proposed 2020 comprehensive zoning map. Tonight's hearing will be dealing exclusively with possible changes to the 4th District zoning map as recommended to the County Council by the Planning Board. The hearing procedures before the County Council. Bad Georgie. Hold on, people. Hey, everybody. Georgie did start medication today. The hearing procedures before the County Council are posted as virtual meetings page on the Council's website and on the Council's Facebook page and are as follows. Anyone wishing to testify should have registered with the County Council in advance via email. Documents could also be attached to this email. The registration enables the council staff to recognize the person and unmute their microphone so they can speak during the video hearing. Speaker registration via email commenced on today's date from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. In order to testify, a person must join the WebEx event with an internet-capable device because it is not possible to identify a person who uses a phone only to listen in during the hearing. Each person testifying at the hearing will be given 3 minutes to speak. The purpose of the time limitation is not to restrict public input, but rather to ensure that everyone who has signed up to address us this evening has an opportunity to do so. The order of testimony will be based on the time a person's email was received for the hearing. Only persons who registered to testify via email will be permitted to speak. In fairness to everyone who properly registered, when a person has concluded their remarks, the host of the meeting, our council administrator, will mute their microphone and the next person's name will be called and their microphone will be unmuted and they will be asked to give their remarks. And this process will continue until all persons who register to testify have had an opportunity to speak. In fairness to all persons and to expedite the meeting, it is requested that repetitive comments on the same issue not be given. If someone before you has presented very similar testimony, you may simply comment that your concerns have been previously raised and waive your time. Before we begin this hearing, Councilman Julian Jones, do you have any opening remarks?
Yes, I do, Madam Chair. Thank you so much for the recognition. I would just like to welcome everyone to the hearing. I certainly look forward to your testimony. These are some very trying times for all of us who knew that we would have a global pandemic, and then who knew that that could be pushed off the front page of the newspaper by global and national protests. So our processes must go on. These things are embedded in law in Baltimore County, so we must move forward. So I certainly look forward to all the testimony and welcome you. And I know that some of these issues have been very contentious in the community, and I look forward to hearing what people have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Ms. Belcastro, who is our first speaker for this evening?
Madam Chair, our first speaker is Dr. Marco Clark. And before I call Dr. Clark, just want to remind the people that are testifying that there will be a sound when their time is up. So if they could conclude their remarks once they hear that sound of their 3 minutes of time.
Thank you, Ms. Belcastro.
Dr. Clark, are you there?
I am.
Okay, you may begin your testimony.
Okay, good afternoon, esteemed council members. I am excited to come before you and speak on behalf of the residents at the Wyndham Condoms residential area in Owings Mills. And the reason that I'm coming to you today is that I happen to be the son of a resident that lives in the Wyndham community, and I have been a forward-thinking community person within their community to ensure that they had a stable environment and think whatever they needed to volunteer my time to support the community. What I'm asking the council today to do is to ensure that they go back to the original 3.5 density to keep the owner from constructing a multi-unit community in the middle of their community. If you look at the zoning area, they have a landlocked position. With that, these are folks who have moved into this community to get away from children and to have a community where they are supported and have a senior community. I'm speaking on behalf that my parent lives there, and I need her to be in a safe environment, free of young people, and in a nice, quiet environment. That is the purpose that they are there. These are homeowners. Many of them have purchased their condominiums, and they are not looking to move. They created a great housing authority community there. And the HOA is really doing a lot of stuff, and they do not need to have a multi-unit built in the middle of their already landlocked position. And so what I'm asking the council to do, and as a long resident of Baltimore County and a servant of the public in my professional community, I'm asking that the council vote to ensure that this goes back to this 3.5 density for the safe and order position of the people who have moved in that community, who have retired. Many of them have downgraded from their homes to move into a smaller community where they could fellowship with folks of their age rather than individuals who are younger that will bring ultimate things in the community they are not happy with. It is a nice, safe, quiet environment, and there is no need to have renters in the middle of those folks who own, and it is a landlocked position. And I must reiterate that it is the buildings there have this position landlocked, which will require any other construction to have persons having to use their private property in order to be able to get to this position. So I really ask that this council, that I think of so much, will take the moment to ensure that these folks who are retired age continue to have a safe and orderly community. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Marco, for joining us this evening. Ms. Belcastro, before we continue, is the planning board not putting up the issues? Or am I just not seeing them?
I just messaged the
Okay.
person from planning to find out.
I just want to make sure. I just wasn't seeing them. Okay, so they're not up on the screen.
Hi, sorry,
I
this
make-
is me from Chris. I need to make, okay, thank you.
I got you.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Next, yes, Councilman Jones.
Let me just, I see the issue now on the screen. Let me just, thank you very much, Dr. Clark, for your advocacy on this issue. And I really appreciate you and the leadership of the community having the meeting to explain to me the entire history of this property and where we are today. And it is extremely somewhat complicated in that, you know, when you go back to the beginning of the development to now, and the documents that the community provided to me has certainly been very compelling. So I thank you so much for your testimony.
Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Ms. Belcastro, next speaker, please.
Yes, our next speaker is Denise Taylor. Let me see if Ms. Taylor is on. Ms. Taylor,
I'm on the phone. I'm on the phone. Excuse me, I couldn't get connected on the computer, but I'm on the phone.
okay, you are ready to begin your testimony.
Okay. Distinguished council members, I'm president of the Wyndham Condominium Association. The property was rezoned from 3.5 to 10.5 density by order of the Board of Appeals after the council denied the developer's request during the 2000 CZMP. The appeal was submitted on a documented site plan. Therefore, County Code 32 mandates that the developer and subsequent owners be bound to the specifications submitted in the site plan and the construction be completed within 3 years, or the property shall revert to its original classification. The statute is attached as Exhibit 1 to the packet we submitted. After the board granted his request, the developer built and annexed sections to the condominium pursuant to the Maryland Condo Act, Section 11120, which affords developers, I'm sorry, are you still there?
Yes, we're listening.
I'm sorry, my phone kept going out. Which affords developers the right to build and annex onto the condominium for a period not to exceed 10 years. In 2009, the developer filed for bankruptcy and the property sold to the current owner, who also chose not to exercise the right to annex additionally contemplated units. The property cannot now be further developed in conformance with that documented site plan because the Maryland Condo Act precludes it. Nearly 20 years have passed since the Board of Appeals conditional rezoning approval, and we're asking that you revert the property back to 3.5 zoning as required by the county code. Our request is consistent with the original intent of the parties with regard to any undeveloped property, as evidenced by the exhibit list from the appeal, which is Exhibit 5 to our outline. It is the recorded declaration that the developer entered into with the neighboring tag community, requiring that he request any part of the parcel not developed as contemplated revert to DR 3.5 zoning. The declaration runs with the land. It was included in the documented site plan and was relied heavily on by the Board of Appeals in granting this request to expand the density. We feel that not requiring the owner to comply with the mandates of county code, Maryland law, and recorded declarations, and allowing him to construct a multi-unit residential or commercial building on the landlocked subject lot in the middle of a community owned and occupied by senior citizens would be out of alignment with the county's goals. My neighbors will be explaining how the community has suffered and how the current owner has been unjustly enriched by his purchase of this property. I really appreciate you listening tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. Thank you for joining us this evening. Ms. Belcastro, next speaker, please.
That would be Rebecca Newberger. Ms. Newberger?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes. You may begin your.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, and thank you so much for allowing me to speak at this council meeting. My name is Rebecca Newberger, and I am the new owner of 9600 Liberty Road, which is at the corner of Liberty Road and Owings Mills Boulevard. Another contract purchaser filed the CZMP request, issue number 4-012, for BMAS zoning with the intention of pursuing a fuel service station and convenience store. I want to state for the record, I was not involved in that request. I have no intention of trying to have that use on the property and would like to now request BM, business major zoning for the property. You may be familiar with the historic stone house on the property, Choate House. I understand the importance and value of this structure. In fact, this house is what attracted me to this property in the first place. My goal is to provide space for some type of commercial use, while at the same time honoring the history of the property and providing value to the community. The BM zoning would help me accomplish that. Thank you for your consideration, and I appreciate the time.
Yes, thank you for joining us this evening. Ms. Belcastro, next speaker.
Our next speaker is Tim Clark. Mr. Clark, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes. You may
good.
begin your testimony.
Okay. Hi, my name is Tim Clark, and I live at 3603 Stony Brook Road in the historic Fieldstone community of Randallstown, Maryland. I am representing the Combined Communities Advocacy Council of Greater Randallstown, which is comprised of 10 communities that represent over 2,700 households in the greater Randallstown area. We've got 4 issues we're going to talk about. The first is issue 4-006, a request to change from zoning 3.5, DR 3.5 and DR 5.5 to DR 16 to accommodate an assisted living facility. The CCA-CGR is not against assisted living facilities, but we believe an increase in zoning density to allow a 90 to 100 bed assisted living facility should not be developed in a vibrant residential neighborhood. The community has multiple concerns about the large-scale projects, including added traffic congestion by supply deliveries, employees, visitors, and residents going and coming. Additionally, we are concerned about dumpsters and/or incinerators for waste and refuse disposal. Vital community resources of water and electric could be strained. The neighbors surrounding this proposal development have come out in force to object to this proposal due to the ongoing problems they have had with this neighbor in maintaining the problem with numerous calls to code enforcement. To put it bluntly, as was brought up in a meeting with the community, they don't trust this owner will keep their promises to maintain the assisted living facility. We have no problem with the owner building homes on this property that would fit in with the community. Issue 4-012 requests zoning change from DR16 to RO and RO to BMAS. I just heard that one. But our philosophy is the Choate House is on the Baltimore County preliminary landmark list voted by the Landmark Preservation Committee in accordance with Baltimore County law in January 10th, 2019. This gives the Choate House temporary protection until the Baltimore County Council votes to either add or not add the Choate House to the Baltimore County final landmarks list. If the Baltimore County Council approves this, the Choate House would have historic preservation. A suggestion might be to consult a firm that would help in developing the current house with some modifications into a restaurant as they are badly needed in the Randallstown area. Issue 4-018. Request to change zoning from DR 3.5 and RO to RO. We support this change with that person. Issue 4-019, the building a veterans home. We are opposed to this. It would add to already heavy traffic problem on Liberty Road. We fully support any housing for our veterans, but we think there should be more appropriate location in this county that would not add to an overcrowding in the area. Thank you much for your time.
Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you, Tim.
Next speaker, please.
Madam Chair, our next speaker is April Seitz. I hope I'm saying her name correctly. Are you there?
Yes.
Okay. You may begin your testimony.
Okay. Good evening. My name is April Seitz, and I'm a resident of Wyndham Commons in the Tollgate area of District 4. Wyndham Commons is a community of 74 condominium units owned and occupied by residents ages 55 and older. And the vacant lot being discussed this evening sits in the middle of our community. I'm speaking to ask for your support to revert this vacant lot back to its original zoning designation of 3.5. My husband and I purchased our condo because we wanted to live in a community of people 55 years and older with rules and amenities tailored to that age group. If this property does not revert from the current 10.5 zoning classification to its original designation of 3.5, it would allow for the development of housing for residents of any age, including young children and teenagers. Facilities and amenities for this population would not be in keeping with the needs of our existing 55-plus community. I'd also like to say that the residents of Windham Commons have continued to be burdened by the current lot owner's failure to maintain his property. We have had to bear the cost of keeping the vacant lot mowed and maintained in order that the lot is in keeping with the appearance and safety standards of the community in which his lot sits. In addition, the property owner has failed to develop the stormwater management system, which he had the obligation to do when the county bond was released to him. As there is inadequate stormwater management, further development on this site would only make it worse. And most importantly, the owner of this vacant lot has failed to fulfill the obligations of the site plan for the property within the required time frame of 3 years. And as mentioned before, that's per Baltimore County Code. It has remained undeveloped for 17 years, which we feel is long past the time frame that Baltimore County law allows for implementation of the site plan, and must therefore revert back to its original 3.5 density zoning as the law requires. It is for these reasons that we ask that the zoning classification of this property revert to the original designation of 3.5. This would be the fair action to take for the older citizens of the Windham Commons community and for the surrounding Tollgate community of which we are a part. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you for joining us this evening. Ms. Belcastro, next speaker.
Our next speaker is Kyle Spees. Mr. Spees, are you on?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You can start your testimony when you're ready.
Good afternoon. My name is Kyle Spees, and I work for Conifer Realty. My company is the contract purchaser of 9307 Lyons Mill Road, which is the subject of CZMP 4-017. My company submitted a by-right development plan for 54 multifamily units at this site, which plan was recommended for approval unanimously and vigorously by all county staff. Despite this recommendation, the development plan was denied by the administrative law judge on November 1st, citing in part concerns from the community and administration about the income levels of our future residents. We appealed the ALJ's decision to the Board of Appeals. Our hearing has been delayed due to the health emergency. This CZMP matter before you is a second tactic to stop our planned development. There is no legitimate reason to downzone this property. It is directly adjacent to an existing apartment complex called Owings Park Apartments, and it lies within a large area of the R16 zoning that totals 238 plus acres. The existing zoning is appropriate, and both your planning staff and the Planning Commission have recommended against any change. Downzoning this property amounts to an arbitrary limitation of what it can be developed into, and therefore a measurable taking of its value. A third tactic to stop our planned development has also been undertaken. Bill 5419 was passed by this council in November 2019 and limits the height of structures that meet 7 different arbitrary requirements. The language of the bill is so specific it is obviously aimed to affect our site. We are aware of no other sites in the county that meet all 7 requirements. In addition to appealing the ALJ's ruling, Conifer has engaged the law firm of Relman Colfax, whose work is dedicated to fighting discrimination through legislation. Relman was involved as counsel in the matter that resulted in your county's conciliation agreement with HUD. On March 9, Relman authored a letter which states that the county executive and this council have separately taken steps that raise grave concerns under the Fair Housing Act by, number 1, interfering with the development plan approval process and improperly influencing the ALJ, and number 2, proposing and enacting Bill 5419. The letter conveys Relman's belief that the county's actions violate its obligations under the county's BCA and federal law and are discriminatory. Given our pending development plan appeal and the aforementioned letter from Relman Colfax, we strongly request the council retain the existing zoning of this site as planning staff and the planning commission has recommended. Put bluntly, we are aware of what this CZMP request is trying to do, and we strongly request the council avoid taking such action. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us this evening. Ms. Belcastro, next speaker, please.
The next speaker is Richard Lynch.
Yes.
Mr. Lynch, are you on?
Lynch is correct.
Okay. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Lynch.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Richard Lynch. I'm a 77-year-old retired Baltimore County school teacher and own a condominium at Wyndham Commons with my wife, Alice. We moved to our condo over 5 years ago, selling our home of 21 years. As new residents, we fell in love with the amenities of the community, and especially the community rooms used for social events and meetings, a workout room, a greenhouse, a gazebo, and a wonderful community park owned by the Condominium Association. My wife and I have found this to be a very special place. When I was asked to run for a position on the condo board, I accepted. As a member of the board of directors, I also met and enjoyed the company of others shared similar interests and concerns about our community. As a member of the board, I found that there was a problematic issue that constantly seemed to appear on the agenda. The problem centered around the vacant lot within our community. I was quickly made aware the current owner of the parcel did not appear to have a desire to develop the property in a manner prescribed in his 2009 purchase agreement. The purchase agreement stated he had a 3-year period to develop the property in a manner consistent with the site plan for Wyndham Commons. Their uneasiness was amplified when it was discovered that the current owner obtained a release of a performance bond in the amount of $179,939 from Baltimore County in 2011. This transaction has specific ramifications for our community. The release of this money to the current owner assured that he had already more than covered the cost that he had incurred in buying the property. He paid $57,132 for the property in 2009. The new owner had little incentive to work with the board to make sure that the development of the property met the needs of our community. The performance bond was created as part of a bankruptcy settlement made by the original developer of the property and was held by Baltimore County to construct an upgraded storm drain system needed to support the new 24-unit condominium structure along with the rest of the complex. As of now, 9 years later, none of those bonds have been used to create the storm drain system that would have allowed them to construct the compliant structure. As long a time as I've been a Baltimore County resident, I'm most upset with the fact that a county employee released a $180,000 performance bond and obviously showed no due diligence to ensure that the bond was used for its intended purpose. This was a performance bond controlled by Baltimore County that should have required verification of intent and completion of its terms. Secondly, I cannot understand why, in the light of the facts that are presented in documentation regarding zoning regulations, that this property has not already lost its 10.5 designation. The rules are in place for a reason. Why aren't they being enforced? Wyndham Commons is a community of seniors who have made an investment in their futures. We pay Baltimore County a combined total in excess of $150,000 a year in property taxes for our condos. In addition, each owner pays $4,200 per year to maintain our buildings, roads, streetlights, parking lots, and trash removal. We pay our way in this world. We deserve some protection from our county leaders to shield us from those who would take advantage of us. This has been dragging on for 11 years. Please return this property in question back to its correct 3.5 zoning classification. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Lynch. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Councilman Jones.
Chris, are there any other people testifying from Wyndham Commons?
No, Councilman. That's issue number 4-013. We had,
Yes.
right, the first two registered, they testified on that issue, and then Ms. Seats, and then now Mr. Lynch. They're the only ones testifying on that issue this evening.
Okay, let me just say to the residents that, I certainly appreciate your testimony and your advocacy. And, I was most impressed when I went to meet with them and some of the suggestions. I was curious about why they weren't pursuing some other issues, but they seem to be very, very reasonable people. And they're only asking for the property to go back to where it was, when I thought that maybe they would ask that the property go back to the property that's behind it, which is sort of like a nature preserve. So I would just wanted to thank each and every one of them for coming out to testify, and we certainly appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilman. Ms. Belcastro, next speaker, please.
Our next speaker is Dawn Ferris. Ms. Ferris, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, hi. Good evening. My name is Dawn. I am a Lionswood homeowner, and I've been here since 2013. I'm also on the HOA Board of Directors. And the reason why I had a big concern is one of the, I was listening to the last meeting, and they were saying that it was always a DR16, and the property was an RC3, and it changed in 1994. That's one concern I had. And also, I wanted to bring up that the density of the housing is already overwhelming. The existing traffic makes it difficult and frequent unsafe to enter and exit our community. We have 6 lanes of traffic at the entrance and 2 being turn lanes. It is uncommon to attempt to make a turn from the center lane only to find a car sitting in the lane the wrong direction, attempting to turn into the new daycare across the street. Traffic also moves extremely fast around intersections, adding to the danger. When Owens Boulevard was extended to Liberty Road, causing our community to be split, there has been increasing crime in our community. Traffic turns from Lyons Mills into the community to avoid the traffic light has increased home break-ins and the volume of traffic in the community. Drivers speed through the community, making the streets unsafe. Baltimore County Police have called a number of times for community concerns. The new Lyons Mills Elementary is already overcrowded. Ballard Green is expanding as this, with 189 new homes, which will make it overwhelming and overcrowding, of course, and the schools are overcrowded. We are asking that you keep it or change it. We're asking you to approve our zoning change to a 3.5. Right now, I understand that no one could basically, they know that the lawsuit going on right now, and they wouldn't commit to changing it to a 3.5. But we're overcrowded, and we need some help here. We just have a lot of concerns with our community and our safety and the overcrowding and the overpopulation, the overdensity. So this is what I basically here to say for Lionswood.
Thank you for joining us, Ms. Ferris. Ms. Belcastro, next speaker, please.
Our last speaker this evening is Linda Dorsey Walker.
Good evening. My name is, are you ready?
Yes, whenever you're ready.
I'm Dorsey Walker, and I'm a member of the Lionswood Homeowners Association. I previously testified on this project at a hearing held on October 17, 2019. At that time, I submitted testimony, which I attach herein. My primary reason for testifying today is because of a serious error made by a Baltimore County Office of Planning staff member named Nagoni, who totally revised and altered the outcome of the planning board hearing because of a simple mistake. I think it was innocent, but it was a simple mistake. After extensive discussion on both sides of whether to reduce to zoning level DR 3.5 to allow it to stay at the current DR 16 level. The planning board chair, Scott Phillips, presented a very strong list of arguments in which he said it should be reduced. He went into the conciliation agreement in detail. He talked about the need for the community not to have schools that are any more over capacity than the 20% Lyons Mill Elementary School already is. He talked about the traffic issues and the fact that right now Lyons Mill, instead of having the need for one crossing guard, has a need for 3 crossing guards. And people now park across the street from the school, holding up traffic for 15 to 20 minutes every morning. That was not something that was part of the developer's expert study. When she appeared before the administrative officer, she admitted that she took her traffic study in the middle of the day, not in the early morning when the school buses were flowing, not in the afternoon. So what happened was several members around the table agreed with Scott Phillips and his argument about the conciliation agreement, which also shows that we have currently more than sufficient low-income and Section 8 housing in this region not to necessitate any additional housing. So he also spoke to the school overcrowding and so forth. So at that point, it appeared that the general agreement in the room was that they agreed with Mr. Phillips. However, at that point, John Herbst, a member of the planning board, asked one question of Nagoni. He said, before we reduce the level, can you tell us whether historic level has always, of Happy Acres property, has always been 16, DR 16? By her own admission, Nagoni stated that she did not have the document in front of her. However, she was certain, she said, that it had always been zoned throughout the history of the property, which goes back to 1946, when the owners bought it. It had been zoned at DR 16. This caused me to immediately begin writing in the chat for that meeting, she's wrong. Please go to my neighborhood. You can see very easily that the DR 16 rating did not come until 1994, as was alluded to earlier. No one paid attention to that. I wrote it at least 5 or 6 times, but no one stopped talking to pay attention. So what happened at that point? Mr. Herbst managed to turn the meeting around totally. He got another member of the planning board to agree with him, and they started saying, well, gee, if it's always been nothing but 16, who are we to change it now? That's the history of the property. Why would we change the history of the property? And with that, he called for immediate vote, and at least 3 members of the planning board withheld their vote because they didn't want to take a position one way or the other. They abstained rather than take a position. And only 2 people ended up voting in favor of it, and I think it was 3 people that voted against having it raised. So there you have it, lowered. And so there you have it, a mistake made by someone who should have just plainly said right from the beginning, I don't have the information that you have, I'll get back to you, led to the result that you now have before you from the planning board. My testimony previously talked about the overrun at the school in terms of the population of the school. At no time during my testimony in October did I discuss income. What Conifer said is totally inaccurate. The community is concerned about the safety of our children, about the overcrowding at the school. We already have a soil erosion problem where the property is on an extremely steep slope and it runs off mud into the middle of Lyons Mill Road. And when the developer was asked, well, what are you going to do about the storm water management system? Because I asked the judge to ask them that question. And what they said was, well, there's an existing stormwater management pond somewhere in the back, And we just assume that while we're doing the development, water will run off to it. Guess who owns and is legally and financially responsible for that stormwater management pond they just casually alluded to? It was Lyons Mill Homeowners Association. So with that, all I can say is that we care, and certainly I care. I worked for years, over a decade of my life, to bring fair housing to Baltimore County. I have put in and submitted information, testimony for bill after bill after bill to bring about fair housing in Baltimore County. So in no way would I stand in the way of any development coming for that reason. The reasons that we have noted are because of the safety and security of our community, and that seems to be ignored.
Is that, okay, thank you, Ms. Dorsey Walker, for joining us this evening. That's our last and final speaker, Ms. Belcastro.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Mr. Boswick, are there any announcements for the next hearings that you would like to make?
Yes, ma'am, Madam Chair. Just an FYI that the next hearing will be next Tuesday, or this coming Tuesday, at 4 p.m., June the 9th. This will be the 6th district hearing, Madam Chair, your district. And it'll be convened exactly the same way these first two, which I think procedurally at least have been going well. So, so stay tuned until Tuesday.
Okay, thank you everyone for joining us this evening.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Councilman Jones.
I just wanted to take an opportunity to thank everyone for participating and really appreciate all the testimony from the citizens. And we will certainly take all your testimony into consideration, and we really appreciate you coming out testifying. Thank you.
Yes, I'd like to thank everybody, and thank you to our counsel, Mr. Tom Boswick, and our administrator, Chris Belcastro. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Madam Chair.